Welcome to the Powerful One podcast with your host, Tommy Parker. This college dropout turned entrepreneur and high-performance coach created Powerful One with the mission of sharing the stories of individuals who have divided from conformity and redefined success in their own terms. Join us as we dive into the incredible stories and journeys of becoming truly powerful.
Welcome to the Powerful One podcast, everybody. I am your host, Tommy Parker, and today's episode is with Chef Ashish Alfred. But before we get into the episode, I just wanted to mention the Powered Up party that is happening March 29th, Monday at 5:30 p.m. And I am so excited to bring you guys the first ever Powered Up party. This is going to be an awesome time for people to come together, collaborate, share ideas. We're going to have a Q&A style format. We're going to have a guest. We're going to have some giveaways, a bunch of really cool stuff. So guys, click the link below in the show notes to register. Bring a friend. It's going to be a really awesome time. Going to be some giveaways, going to be some really good stuff, some really awesome conversations. But now, without further ado, let me introduce the guest today, Chef Ashish Alfred. Chef Al is a world-renowned chef based in Baltimore, Maryland, and Chef Al has been featured on shows such as Chopped, Food Network, Cutthroat Kitchen, and The Today Show, and much more. He was also featured in many publications such as Southern Living, The Washington Post, The Baltimore Sun, and Chef Al has created award-winning restaurants in the Baltimore and DC Metro area under the Alfred Restaurant Group. He earned acclaim for two of his restaurants, DuckGoose Baltimore and DuckGoose Bethesda, and was named Maryland Chef of the Year 2019 by the Maryland Restaurant Association. Baltimore Business Journal recognized Chef Alfred as 40 under 40 recipient in 2020 as the product of his personal success, his growth in his business, and his philanthropic efforts helping out the community as a whole. He is one of the faces of Visit Baltimore 2020, and he has been a huge catalyst for helping restaurants and speaking out during this countrywide lockdown. And in this episode today, we talk about Ashish's life growing up. We talk about overcoming insecurities and his early struggles with substance abuse. He talks about finding structure in his life through cooking and finding his love for being a chef. He talks about battling with suicide, battling with suicidal thoughts, insane stories of struggle, rehabilitation from his childhood, finding peace for the first time in his life, and then starting to build a better life for himself, becoming stronger than his addictions, opening up new restaurants, and really shifting his restaurant focus to a team and a culture atmosphere rather than a personal gain. He talks a lot about his current successes and advice for people who are at a rock bottom. And finally, he talks about changing the language in which you speak to yourself and so much more. So here it is, guys, episode 43 with Chef Al.
Welcome to the Powerful One podcast, everybody. I am here with Ashish Alfred. I know him as Chef Al. And man, I am grateful to be connected to you, brother.
Grateful
thank
to
you so
be here.
much. Yeah, man. Thank you so much for being here, dude. How are you, man?
I'm good. The weather's finally starting to make a turn. The days are not as cold, not as miserable. So, yeah, I'm good, man.
I love it, man. No, super appreciate you being on here, man. I just want to say, dude, honor to you, man. You're somebody who inspires me, dude. I've haven't been connected with you that long, man, but for the short time I've known you and I know what you're about, dude. It inspires me, man, and just who you are and who you've become. And we'll get into a little bit of your story and journey, but dude, honor to you, man, because you are an inspiring person. And you fit the mold for Powerful One, dude. You are a powerful dude and you are just living that power every day, brother.
Thanks, man. I'm super grateful, and that's super, super humbling. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course, man. Of course. So let's get right into it, man. You're a fascinating dude, man. You've had a crazy journey, a crazy story. So just take me through it, man. Wherever's a good starting spot for you, man. We'll just get the listeners into your powerful journey, man, to become the powerful one that you are.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's a tough one. There's a lot of places that I guess I could start with. And, I feel like my life has started and stopped a bunch of times. But, most recently, I guess the singular event in my life obviously was my sobriety. That was, just shy of 7 years ago. And that was something that, by the grace of God and my family and a few good friends, I was able to get where I needed to be, because I surely, had I not done it when I did it, I probably wouldn't be sitting in front of you here today. Not probably, I definitely wouldn't be sitting in front of you here today. everything from there, once I got to a place that I realized that I was not the only person and thing in this universe, and there's other things that mattered, and I started being grateful for the world around me, then the world kind of became my oyster.
Yeah, man, I'm really fascinated with kind of that come up, so to speak. And so I'm really curious, man. I know, you've battled addictions, man. You've been through a lot of different things in your life. So take me back to, your first experience, man, where you were feeling that same way. Like you had that, I forget what you just call it, like that ego or that bravado. Like, talk me through just how you were when you were younger, man, and how contrast it is toward now, like kind of those early behaviors, those early actions that you had kind of as a young adult.
Sure, man. So I think I'll just talk a little bit about just like insecurity, and for
Mm.
me, I just grew up as a super super insecure kid. There was not a lot of love at home. Yes, my mother loved me very much. My dad was not the nicest guy in the world. I don't want to go into too much detail, but I grew up in an area where I was the only brown kid around. So it was definitely I was always in a situation where I was either being picked on or picked at or talked about. And that definitely bled into my life as I got older, because all of a sudden you bring booze and drugs to that party, and I can bang with the best of them. And it took a while for me to get to a place where I was okay, in my own skin, and I think that's what a lot of people are constantly fighting for. But it took a lot of kind of live and let God for me to get to a place where I could just kind of be okay in my own skin.
Yeah, man. So talk a little bit more about kind of that upbringing, if you don't mind, just, being kind of a little bit of an outcast. You mentioned you were the only person with brown skin. Just talk a little bit more about kind of the way you grew up and how maybe you felt different, or maybe you felt like you had to fit in because of those insecurities, and just kind of the path that led you.
Sure. So I think that stereotypes exist about all minorities, right? And for me especially, the area that I grew up in, I grew up with those stereotypes right in my face. And my parents had just come over from India, so they didn't really know how to they only knew how to raise an Indian kid. They didn't know how to raise an Indian kid growing up in America. And you couple that with the fact that I was going home to when he was home, I was going home to an alcoholic dad, and a mom that was worked to the bone, trying to support three kids, single parent pretty much. There was really no like comfort or solace. So kids can be pretty cruel. Kids can be really really cruel, and I think that it wasn't just kids. It was teachers, it was other officials in school that all they saw was a kid that might have been misbehaving, or might have just not, maybe just having a tough time. And that wasn't the case. It was a lot deeper than that. It was a lot deeper than that. Like, to be a 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kid and not have any peace. Like, you're not at peace when you're at home, you're not at peace when you're at school. I mean, I read your story, and I feel like you can kind of understand that a little bit. And to not even as a child be able to articulate that, and then coming to the realization later in life that I had some men in my family, or in my life, not in my family, but in my life, that were maybe inappropriate with me, that led to some of my insecurity too. And I grew up with a lot of insecurity, and that I mean, I kind of had to like build some walls and just kind of figure out how I was going to navigate life that way. And for me, at an early age, I found booze and drugs, and that was an easy way for me to fit in with other people. That was an easy way for me to kind of numb myself to what was going on. That, and I mean, let's face it, I wanted to feel good. I mean, people can tell you whatever number of reasons that they want to tell you for drinking too much or partying too hard. At the end of the day, people want to feel good, and for that brief period of time, those things do make you feel good. And I think that was the hook for me. That's how it took to me.
Yeah, man, it's so interesting as you say that, right? Because we're born very whole, right, as people, and I do a lot of work in neuroscience and breaking a lot of those conditionings and those limiting beliefs from when we're younger. And so, what's so fascinating, man, is when we're in those ages, specifically 2 to 12, we're literally in like an alpha wave state where we're just in a state of hypnosis, man. So everything that's being just forced onto us, all the conformity, all the conditioning, the limiting beliefs, right? It causes us to put up these walls, like you mentioned, and to create this almost alter ego where we try to, if whatever we were lacking, right, in life, we try to achieve it on the other end. So, you know, it's very clear that because, you know, you had those insecurities, that you wanted to seek something that was external, you wanted to be able to feel good, man. And so, you know, obviously you mentioned that turned to drugs and alcohol, man. So, you know, going, and that's why, you know, people don't realize how intentional they have to be with kids, man, and how much sponges kids are, because you have all these things and you don't know what's going to stick with kids, man. And whatever does stick, if it's something really negative, it can lead them down a really dark path. And so, you know, yeah, jump
And
in,
also
man.
in my life, there's just been, you know, as a young man as a young boy, and even sometimes as a young man, and I feel like it's important to say this. I don't know who listens to your show, but especially for like some of the people that come from like Asian cultures or maybe even some Latin cultures, it's important for them to hear this, because you at home you're Indian, and then you go to school and you're expected to be, you know, a red-blooded American, and you feel like, I'll speak for myself. You know, I feel I am an American. I'm born here. I'm raised here. I've gone to school here. You know, my first kiss was here. My first I'm American. But at home, you know, I'm being raised by these people that come from one of the oldest cultures in the world, which they embrace, which makes them feel secure. And those two juxtaposing forces on a child, it can really put you in limbo. Like, you know, where do I belong? Add that to the fact that, you know, and this isn't a pity party for me, but add that to the fact that the temperature at home was not great. You know, it was a tough place to be.
No, man, you're so spot on. And I'm glad you kind of went deeper into that, because it really just does showcase, right? It's like, you want to feel good, man. You want to feel good. So you look for outlets that can make you feel that. So like you mentioned, you know, a lot of those circumstances kind of led you down this path, because, you know, what we do, man, is we want to be able to feel whatever we were neglected, whatever our limiting beliefs were. We want to be able to feel the opposite of that, the opposite extent. So talk a little bit about some of those ways that you tried to achieve that from what you had lacked as a kid, you know, building those insecurities and trying to overcompensate in the way of other areas, and what that kind of looked like for you.
I think that, you know, being bullied as a young kid, it made me, you know, it made me a very violent teenager. You know, I was the kind of kid, and I know all the dudes are gonna jump out there like, oh, he doesn't look that tough to me, but whatever, go fuck yourself. But I mean, it made me a super violent teenager. I mean, it made me one of those kids that was like, you know, you bump into me in the hallway, I'm gonna fucking smack you in the face with my backpack. And that translated to everybody. Like, I felt like I was constantly in a situation where like I had to prove who I was and what I was about to everybody that I came across, which is a painful place to be. And then, you know, I just had a really low opinion of myself. Like, you know, it's one of those things where, man, I'll never be able to be friends with those people, or I'll never be able to, you know, I'll never be able to go to like a really good college because I'm not that smart. Or I'm just not as well organized, or my family's not as good as this person's family. So it's constant. It's that self-talk early on that really kind of, I think, made my adolescence difficult on me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's so interesting hearing you say all that, and like, you know, like, you don't know what's gonna stick to a kid, right? And you don't know what walls that's gonna put up, and what reality they're gonna live because of that. That's not their actual reality. It's the reality that they've had to put up to you know, keep themselves safe, right? So, you know, as you talk about, you know, getting into some different things, what did you know, you talk about, you know, lower school, middle school, all that stuff now. So what did that kind of look like as you got older with those different things that you were facing in terms of how you had to overcome those?
I mean, I'll be honest, man. Like, things didn't really change for me until I got into cooking. I was in the DC area. I was bouncing from bartending gig to door guy gig to whatever I could kind of find. And on, you know, I tried the like conventional college route a couple times because I'm Indian and you're just expected to be the fucking engineer or a doctor or something amazing. So my mom tried to like ram college down my throat, and that wasn't working. Nothing really changed for me until I found cooking, and I think that what it was about cooking, it was the rigidity of it. It was the, hey, I have to be in class at 7 a.m. in uniform, in a clean uniform, with my shit done from the day before, and somebody's going to tell me exactly what I've got to do all day long. You know, in hindsight, I probably would have done well in the military too, but I needed that. I needed a specific set of rules of, hey, this is what you've got to do. Like, if you're going to make chicken stock, you need this many pounds of chicken bones, this many pounds of onions, carrots, celery, this much water, this much parsley, rosemary, whatever. That, I fell in love with that. It didn't cure my sick. Like, I still kept drinking and partying and whatever, but it was the first time in my life that I felt something was doable by me. It didn't matter how I looked. It didn't matter that I was smaller than everybody else. It didn't matter like where I came from or, I was only accountable to me, and I only had to be better than the guy on my left and the guy and the guy on my right. I had to clean quickly, cook quickly. I had to be a hustler in my own little, in my own little space, and that I was okay with.
Man, I love that so much. I love that it goes along the thing for Powerful One, man. Like you divided from the conformity, you divided from that conditioning to really find, at this point, what you wanted to do, right? You were still kind of finding who you were, it seems like, because you still had those other influences in your life. But talk to me more about finding this love for cooking, man, and really the passion you had. I can hear it in your voice, and obviously, it's paid off in a big way. But talk to me early how you found this route for yourself.
It was totally by accident, really. It was I wasn't planning on being a cook. I didn't have dreams of being a cook. It was none of that. For me, the whole thing started, I'm going to really paraphrase the story, but the whole thing started, I was living at my mom's house and I was hungover all the fucking time. And at that time, Food Network was like really kind of like becoming a thing that people were just watching for the sake of watching. And I think Chopped was in its first couple seasons or first few seasons. And I was like, man, I can do that. And then I picked up Tony Bourdain's book, Kitchen Confidential. And if you read that book, it's basically Tony talks about how cooks, all they really do is cook all night, drink while they cook, party after they're done cooking, and then come and do it again the next day. And I was like, I'm fucking doing this shit for free right now.
Wow.
You fucking go get a culinary diploma and get paid for it. So I cooked my family this amazing Thanksgiving meal. I downloaded every fucking Jada, Bobby Flay, whoever you can think of, their recipes. And I cooked this Thanksgiving meal for my family. And I'm like, hey, I really want to go to culinary school. And at that point, my parents were like, fuck it. Like, just get a degree in something. Underwater basket weaving. We don't care. Like, get a piece of paper that says you know how to do something. So fell into it totally by accident. My plan was I just needed a ticket to New York City. I was like, I'll go up to New York City. I'll fucking try out school, but it'll be a cool place for me to party. I can definitely get a gig tending bar or doing something. And I went, man, and like I told you, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the colors of the food, the smells, the way there was never something, there was always something to learn. I fell in love with like the physicality of it. Anybody that tells you like cooking isn't like an athletic thing is lying to you. I fell in love with just kind of the militaristic nature of it. Really did a lot for me.
Man, so that was so fascinating. So I'm curious, like, did you find that you had no structure and that provided the structure you needed? And that was, another form of the cooking was that structure. And then I'm also curious, what that looked like, how long were you in culinary school and then how long that process kind of went?
Sure. It was 100%. I fell in love with the structure. I fell in love with not having to be in charge. I didn't have to be in charge of my own day. Because there was just other stuff that I had to do. And, in a kitchen, especially like a typical French kitchen, you come in, there's shit for you to do the whole fucking day. And if you don't have something to do, somebody's going to find you something to do. I was in culinary school, to answer your question, I was in culinary school for just under a year. And then you're required to hold an internship while you're there. And then after that, I stayed in New York City for about another year and a half, 2 years-ish. And I kind of bounced around from job to job. Interned here, did a stage in one place, and then held a job for a little while here, but I would typically get paid and then not show up for 3 days, and I kind of bounced from place to place.
Man, so walk me through your mindset at this time and your confidence level, right? Because now you've found something that you're really, it seems like, passionate at the time about. What was your mindset in terms of, did you know you were going to be able to take this anywhere? Did you know, obviously hindsight's 2020, but I'm very curious of your mindset at the time, because it seems like you had these conflicting things. You really liked the idea of, doing the cooking, being the chef, but you also had this other world that you were living and kind of, mixing the two. So I'm just really curious, a little bit more of your mindset during this time.
Oh man, there was no ambition. It was just making it from day to day. There was no ambition. And for me, I mean, suicide was a constant in my life. It didn't matter. I just had to make it from one day to the next. And, for me, not to sound morose, but I welcome that idea. Like I would tell people would say, my mother would ask me, do you pray? And in the back of my mind, I'd be telling myself, yeah, I pray. I pray that God helps me overdose this time. So no, there was no ambition. It was literally just making it from day to day. I mean, I did have this ego still, because I was like, oh, I went to culinary school, and to be honest, I was pretty good, not as a chef, but as a cook, I was pretty good. I was faster than most guys. I was cleaner than most guys. You knew you could count on me to get like a 2-hour job. If there was somebody that could do it in an hour, it was me.
So I kind of had this ego where, and some of the jobs that I had, they didn't help because I would not show up for 2 or 3 days, but I was good at my fucking job. So they'd call me and they'd be like, listen, this is the last time. We need you to come in. If you fuck us again, you're definitely fired. Okay. So I'd show up for the 4 or 5 shifts that I needed to work. They'd pay me. And then sure as shit, I'd fucking disappear again for, a week.
Wow. And I know during this time, not shortly after, and I know you've mentioned before, I've listened to a lot of your story about how this same ego that you had for the cooking led you to, end up opening up your first restaurant. And so, I'm really curious, like going through that, a lot of people think, being good at something makes you being good at, owning a business, which are two different things. So I'm curious where that ego led you in terms of, you're a good cook. Oh, I'm going to open up a business, and kind of where that led you from the get-go.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny to talk about it now, but it wasn't funny at the time. I came home from New York City, and I had this culinary diploma, and I had worked in all these great restaurants and knew nothing about opening a business, running a business, being like an actual chef and training a team, knew nothing about any of it. But I was sure that I could figure it out, right? Like, fucking hold my beer. I got this. My mom, bless her heart, she was along for the ride. I look back at that part of my life with not a lot of regret. I mean, what I like to say jokingly now is it was the most expensive PhD that anybody in this country has ever gotten, ever. But yeah, man, it was a miserable experience. But it also, like, when I came away from that a little bit, it was a very humbling experience for me too, because it almost killed me. That ego, because I already had a drug and alcohol problem. And then now I've got something to prove to the one woman in my life that I've actually ever, really, really cared about so much. And also to, my friends that are around, because the first restaurant was in the community kind of that I grew up in. So all these people are looking at me and I'm fucking this thing up royally. And so now, the pain is so much worse, and I'm drinking myself and drugging myself to death. And that was kind of, that's where kind of the turning point came.
Yeah, man. So I'm so curious about this turning point, man, and really, what this looked like for you. I mean, I know what it looks like, but really, I'm so curious behind the mindset of, going into these certain things. So, man, talk a little bit more about not only the turning point and really what that inflection point, that deep inflection point was for you to kind of keep your ego in check and be able to step on the other side of all these demons, man. I'm just really curious, not only for that inflection point, but also just the mindset behind all this.
Yeah. I mean, just to your question, the one thing I do want to point out, and I think it's important to say this just because you never know who's going to hear this. You never step on the other side of your demons. You just learn to embrace them.
Wow.
They say it in AA, like, your disease is in the parking lot doing push-ups, waiting for you to fuck up. My demon is, and I'm not perfect, man. I've got my faults. Like, my demon is sitting right here and it's sitting right here. The day that, at the end of the day, what's stopping me? I got enough money to last me for a 2-week-long bender in Vegas if I want to. I could fuck it up right here, right now. So to answer your question, it's public. So I'll tell you, I broke into the restaurant. The keys have been taken away from me because I'd stolen so much cash. So I broke into the restaurant one night, stole a bunch of money, banged a bunch of dope, and nodded out in the middle of Cordell Avenue where my restaurant was. Fell over, busted out like 3 or 4 of my teeth, made it to my apartment somehow. And the drug dealing prostitute that was at my apartment waiting for me to bring her money for more drugs, super glued my face shut. My mom came and found me a couple days later. And this is a woman who I'd never seen give up on my father. I'd never seen give up on me. She showed up and she kind of laid it down and she was just like, listen, I'm not even going to say I love you. She said, I don't want anything to do with you and you will never see me again. Not for food, not for water, not for nothing. She said, you will not see me again if you don't decide to do something different. And I wish I could say that was enough for me, but that wasn't. I still had to do my own thing for a little while and didn't last long. She picked me up. She took me to rehab. And even on my way up to rehab, I'm thinking of a way that I can scam this thing, that I can con this thing. I'm like, I'll do this for a week or two. It'll be like a little detox program. I'll tell everybody, I'm fucking healed by the blood of the lamb. We're all good. And I'll come back home and, I'll do it a little bit less or I'll taper it back. And man, I'll tell you what, I got up there And after the first, 3 or 4 days or maybe a little bit more than that, of feeling like I was going to die, I laughed for the first time. I was sitting in a room with a bunch of guys. And when I say for the first time, I mean, there's one thing for like even me and you now to sit here and like chuckle a little bit. You know what I mean? It's another thing to like from your stomach laugh with no abandon, like with total abandon. Sorry, where uncontrollably laugh, and it stopped me dead in my tracks. And I was like, man, I got to keep this going. Like, this is the feeling that I want to carry this feeling. And how do I carry that feeling? And I hate to say light bulb, because then I feel like everybody who's trying to get sober is looking for a light bulb. And it wasn't a light bulb, but for me, it was just like, I just felt warm and comfortable for the first time in that feeling and in my own skin. And I didn't care how I looked. I didn't care how tall or short or whatever I was. I didn't care about anything in that moment. And I just felt good. I felt okay. I didn't have the fucking sniffles. I didn't have that like weird feeling in my throat from having drank too much the night before. I just felt okay. Wow. And I was like, man, I got to keep this going for as long as I can.
Man, that's incredible, because one thing I do know is, when people, right, when we take drugs, when we take alcohol, we do it, and I say we, knowing and understanding people who've done it, knowing that you do it to make you feel good, right? You don't just do it to do it. You do it because it makes you feel good. So it's so fascinating that you had this converse feeling of that genuine laughter and that happiness. And that was the feel good that you were now ready to chase. That was that real internal feel good, man. So I'm so curious to see how you harness that and how you ended up harnessing that type of feeling to really be able to take that to the next level and try to feel that way all the time. It's so powerful.
I think for me, it just came down to letting go. Like, again, I mean, I'm going to keep talking about ego, but there's a few statements that I carry with me all the time. And one of them was, I don't have to figure this out right now. A lot of times, and also like, I try to, as much as possible, and I'm not perfect, but I try to, as much as possible, eliminate anger. Because what is anger? Anger is just fear's bodyguard. When you get angry, it's really just you saying that you're afraid. You're afraid of how somebody might perceive something. You're afraid of how somebody might be perceiving you. You're afraid of what might happen, so you get angry. So for me, I harnessed a lot of that peace that I got, and I turned it into, finding ways to deal with my anger, finding ways to deal with my insecurities. And I realized that when I took care of the things that Ashish needs to take care of, like when I took care of, my dad said something to me, and he's never been a super wise man, but every once in a while he had a nugget. And he said, it was this whole like inner child thing. And he said this to me, and he's like, listen, like, don't ever forget the fact that there's a young boy inside of you, and don't ever treat yourself the way that in a way that in which you would not treat that young boy.
Wow.
And don't ever let that young boy say or do things that you would not let a young boy say or do. And it's, again, like I said, I'm not perfect. It's a constant for me, just like it is for everybody else. But for me, it became me being accountable to me.
That's so good, man. There's so much amazing stuff that you said right there. And you're really speaking to my heart, man. I appreciate you letting that in. And, I'll even have some stuff to follow up with, man. But, that's one thing that's so true to me, right? I have a mission statement for myself, is like what I want to do in my life. And part of that is I want to make the kid inside of me proud, right? When I look in the mirror, I'm like, would little Tommy be proud of me, man? And that's what I'm hearing from you, man. Like, the truth is, man, and going a little bit more on the ego, truly, the ego is the programs that you have from your software and your hardware from when you were a kid. So it's the feelings, it's the feelings, your body, and the thoughts, your brain running on autopilot. So your ego is there to quote unquote keep you safe. It's basically, 95% of what we do, it's our subconscious, right? So that's the ego just living on autopilot, right? Without us really being able to tap into it. And the problem with the ego, man, is that when you're your ego, when you're your thoughts and your feelings and that subconscious, 90% of your thoughts are negative.
Yep.
That's the crazy, the crazy truth about the ego, man. And so this is something where until you get the awareness, or until you get this sense of direction where you want to go in life, it becomes so hard because you, like you said earlier, man, you can never get rid of your ego, right? You can only become stronger than your ego, but it'll always be there. And it's so just powerful hearing you talk about this and taking those steps and those strides to be able to overcome the ego, man. And I'm so curious in that next phase, man, as you're doing this and you're having these realizations and you're starting to, get your ego in check, what was that next step for you, man? Starting to step into your power finally and really, be the being and be the operator that's greater than the ego.
Yeah. Believe it or not, the next step for me was I opened my first DuckGoose. I am not the next Grant Achatz, who's an amazing chef, by the way. I'm not the next Grant Achatz. I'm not the next Thomas Keller. I'm not any of these guys, because these guys have gone and they've put 15, 20 years in on the stove for somebody else in Paris and Spain and wherever. I'm not that guy. But I am a guy that has washed dishes, that has bar back, that has bounced, that has bartended, that has cooked, that has served tables. I've done all those things. So I can take that amalgam of information and knowledge and apply that to one restaurant. And I can do what I know how to do really well and stop trying to be something that I'm not. And so if I just take this, if I can master like these 4 seasons, if I can put together a menu for each of these 4 seasons and they can be really good, that's all the fuck I got to worry about right now. And then, as I'm kind of working on that, then if I want to build on that and add some more dishes or change some bits of the service, then I can do that. And I can make sure to surround myself, because now I'm not so much worried about how somebody's making me feel all the time. Now I'm running a business and now it's not about me. So I can surround myself, whereas before I might not have. Now I'm surrounding myself with people smarter than me, people better than me, people that I can look to for answers. Now I'm not just relying on me anymore. And now I don't, how do I say this? That arrogance is gone.
It's incredible, man. I'm so curious. What was the biggest difference, right, between the first restaurant and between the first DuckGoose restaurant that really, they seem like two polar opposite things. What was the real difference, man, that carried you for success in this time opening this restaurant?
This was, in the beginning stages, I was there every single night. It was a tiny little restaurant. I could see the entire restaurant from, we call it the pass, like where all the food comes up. I finish it, or the chef finishes it with whatever microgreens or sauce is going to finish it with, and then it goes to the tables. I could see the entire restaurant. I could see the kitchen, the entire kitchen behind me. I could see the front door. I could see the bar. I could see the service bartender. I knew how many people were in the bathroom at any given time. So I was in a situation, I think that led to a lot of the success, because I was able to, as a chef, I was able to see exactly where the clients were in their service. I was able to see exactly like how much longer, a duck breast was going to be. I could look at it over my shoulder, and then I could yell at the manager and be like, hey, drop a steak knife for that table. Their entree is getting ready to come up. There was that. And also, I think another big thing that helped with the success of that restaurant was, and this might be getting a little off topic, but it wasn't about the money there. I got myself into a situation that I could really afford. So I was able to focus on what mattered, the food and the service. Obviously, we wanted to be profitable. When I say it wasn't about money, what I mean is a lot of people think that they're going to get rich with their first restaurant or their first bar or whatever. And if you do, fucking hats off to you. But that's not what it was for me. I had a Frenchman tell me years ago, he said, don't worry about the money in this business. And I'm getting specific to cooking here, but he said, don't worry about the money. He said, if you're good, the money will come. So just focus on being good. So the focus there was really just on being good.
Wow. I love that, man. So as you're starting to establish yourself, man, and establish, DuckGoose, what was kind of that next journey for you, man? Obviously now we look at, on paper and just, knowing you have, great success, not only, in all areas, man. So what did those next few steps look like and to, starting to lead to where you are now, man? And then I want to get into a couple specific things about, who Chef Al is now today.
Yeah. Man, with that early success or recognition or whatever, it became all about the team. Because very early on, I got interested in building a brand for myself to be a voice for people that might be struggling with addiction, with mental illness, with whatever else. And I realized that, I felt like, God had saved my life, and I wanted to kind of pay that forward. And I wanted to create time and opportunity for me to do that. And for me, that meant that I had to get a bunch of other people to drink the Kool-Aid as far as the restaurant was concerned. So for me, then it became all about the team. If I go down, who's stepping in? If that guy goes down, who's stepping in? Is everybody on brand? Does everybody have the same mission? Are we all here trying to do the same thing? We tell a story called the Grape Soda story. Very early on at DuckGoose, table comes in. They order drinks, and there's a kid at the table, and he asked for a grape soda. Well, of course, restaurants don't fucking carry grape soda. We just don't. The manager came over, and she said to me, her name was Lily, great manager. She came over and she kind of like chuckled, and I was like, "What's funny?" And I didn't hear the conversation. I was like, she was like, "The kid asked me for a grape soda." So I was like, "Oh, okay." So I said, "Do me a favor, get me some cash out of the drawer real quick." So she got me a $5 out of the drawer, and there's a bodega just around the corner. So I ran over to the bodega, and I grabbed this kid a grape soda, and I came back with it. Because if we can do something for somebody, then why not do it? We are not big enough to where we can say no to anybody. I'm not saying that, sit there and do push-ups for your table if you have to, but that is the mantra that we carry through the restaurants. There's no job too small. There's no request that if we can accommodate you, we will accommodate you. We're not reinventing the wheel from a culinary standpoint. Yes, I appreciate the compliments that we get when people are like, "Hey, the food is amazing. Best food I've ever had." I appreciate that. But as somebody that knows a lot about food, we ain't that special. We're special because we make you feel good. And that's why it became all about the team. I had to get the right people involved that could understand that.
Man, it's so amazing. And it goes to something I say all the time, man. When you align yourself with the right people, man, and you have the right people at the right place, the right time, man, the right things happen. And that was so clear from you, man. Now, getting around the right people, like you said, hiring people who quote unquote were smarter than you or better than you, and the favor that had on you, and then the servant's heart that gave you to be able to be a leader and to be able to create this culture, man. And so you talk about something that really goes along with the main idea of what power is, right? Power is the ability to make a difference in the world by influencing people. So I want to talk, man, about more of that, just who you are, man, your radiant energy as a person, the power that you have, not only, through the people at your restaurant, right? Your employees, stuff like that, man. And just people in general, man, people who maybe did deal with addictions. Like, what is the biggest part of having that power and having that influence on people, for you, man, and being able to have that servant's heart and be a leader for so many people?
I mean, if I'm here today, it's because of the prayers and good wishes and charity and forgiveness, and I can keep going, of a lot of people. So for me, I constantly try to give of myself. My most precious commodity is my time. I constantly try to give out of myself out of fear that if I stop doing that karma is going to come back and bite me in the fucking ass. So for me, it's a constant, whether it's people that work for me, people that I know, if I'm not constantly paying it forward, I'm kind of like looking over my shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Man, that's incredible, dude. That's incredible. And one thing for you, man, is like, I've seen, a lot of the ways you interact with people, a lot of the ways that you do this, man. What was some advice you would give to somebody, being on, the other side, but also, like you said, not being on the other side, still having it be with you is just something that you're just getting better at every day, and just, being able to overcome and have the strength every day, man. What is something you could give for advice for somebody who's maybe going through a really rough time and now being on, the other side of it in terms of that, right? Like, what is some advice that you could give somebody that's really just going through it right now, man? Maybe the way that you did.
One day I will come up with a good answer to this question. That day is not today. But things are only as hard as you make them. It really is that simple. I mean, if it's addiction, whatever it is, right? Like, we all have a hand in our own misery, whether it's financial, whether it's whatever. 9 times out of 10, we've done something to put ourselves where we are. It really, and I'll speak specifically about addiction. It really is that simple. Fucking don't drink today. Don't use today. Go find some help somewhere. even if it doesn't work that first day, right? Like people will say, I get it all the time. Somebody will say, oh, I went to an AA meeting. I didn't like it. Okay. Did you go to another one? 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 At any rate, trying to find one you like is better than fucking sitting around drinking. So my advice, to sum all that up, is just keep it simple, stupid. That whole KISS mentality. Things are simple. I mean, we overcomplicate them as human beings. We set barriers for ourselves that don't exist. You know, I see you in the gym all the time. If you told me fucking a year ago that I could squat, you know, or dead 300 and some odd pounds, I'd tell you to go fuck yourself. There's no way. But little by little, it was just that simple. Pick up heavy shit, pick up a little bit heavier shit the next day, pick up a little bit heavier shit the next day. Life is the same way.
That's incredible, man. That's incredible, dude. You know, seeing where you are now, man, what excites you the most about where you are? Whether it's, you know, doing some stuff. I know you're very passionate about working out. I know you've got 3 restaurants now, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but you know, what is some stuff about where you're at now in life that really just excites you, man?
Dude, I think just not knowing like what's next. You know, I've been super blessed. I don't stop working. I'm constantly trying to like build on it. Like if somebody's not going to hand it to me, I'm going to go fucking get it. You know, between like the YouTube channel and the Instagram and the restaurants and like the consulting gigs, like just watching my life kind of blossom a little bit. That's what excites me, and challenging myself in different ways all the time. That's what excites me. And you know, it's just, I'm speechless because I don't know what to say. Like, I'm so blessed and I'm so grateful that I'm sitting here in front of you today. Like, somebody else wants to hear my story and wants to hear my opinion. Like, I've got to live in that for a second. You know what I mean? Like that's an amazing, compared to where I was to where I am. I mean, that's an amazing thing. So for me, it's just, you know, trying to pack as much life into every single day as I can.
Man, that's so beautiful. I love that, man. You've given so much amazing advice and given your testament and your testimony and your story. And just throughout all this, man, and throughout where you are in life, man, to wrap up the tone of this amazing podcast and all the amazing things you've already shared, what would be one piece of life advice that you could just give to anyone, man? Something that's really stuck out with you in your life. Maybe you said it already, maybe you didn't, but just one piece of life advice to really stick with people, man, to wrap up this amazing podcast.
Oh, wow. That's a big one. Be careful how you talk to yourself. Manage the way that you talk to yourself. The world is full of a bunch of people and things, whether it's advertisements, whether it's people, whatever, whether it's your own family. The world is full of people that are going to chip away at you. Build yourself up. You are an amazing thing. Look in the mirror. Remind yourself who the fuck you are. You are an amazing creation. Whether you believe in God or don't believe in God, you are an amazing organism with some sort of purpose. So watch how you talk to yourself. And if you don't believe me, just practice it a little bit. Start changing the conversations with yourself. Instead of saying I have to, say I get to. Instead of saying I can't, say I can. Instead of saying I won't, say I will. I mean, just whatever that means for you. Change the way you talk to yourself and watch your life change.
Dude, that's incredible, man. I think that's some of the best advice I've ever heard on the podcast, man. And there's some reasons for it, man. I so appreciate that. And to give some statistics to back you up, man, the facts are this, and we're going back to ego for a minute here. The ego is in your subconscious, right? So if you're conscious and you're saying stuff out loud, whether it's positive, negative, when you're saying stuff out loud, the ego can't survive, man. It's like a fish out of water. It's not powerful like it is in your subconscious when it's in its habitat, when it's in its environment, right? So if you start speaking stuff out loud into existence, the research is very clear that when you say something out loud, it becomes 10 times more powerful. And if it's something negative, here's the catch. If it's something negative, it becomes 4 to 7 times more powerful than that. So to wrap on what Chef Al's saying here, man, the language, the championship language or the detrimental language that you're speaking into your existence is real. And I so appreciate you mentioning that, because there is so much truth to that, man. The change in your language will change your life. And I love that, man.
Thanks, brother. Thank you.
Dude, that's so good, man. It's been such a blessing having you on here, man. Where can people find you, brother, if they want to check out your amazing content?
I'm on Instagram, Chef Ashish Alfred. We just launched a YouTube channel a couple months ago. Please go subscribe. Just type Ashish Alfred in there, and you will find all kinds of cooking videos and me ragging on you for not knowing how to cook. So.
It's amazing, man. Yeah, go check out. I'll link all of his stuff below in the show notes. But yeah, Al's he's got really great content on Instagram, really great content on YouTube, amazing cooking videos. You see a lot of his personality, so he does a really great job. Well, man, so blessed and so honored to have you as a friend, and for you jumping on this podcast, it means the world to me, dude.
Thanks, brother. Thanks. I appreciate it. I'm humbled. Thank you.
Awesome, guys. We're out.
Thank you guys so much for making it to the end. I really appreciate your support, not only for me, not only for Powerful One, but also all the guests on this platform, and just tuning in and being inspired and being powerful, man. So, thank you again if you watched this, and, excited for the future. Excited. It's been a great year for Powerful One. Excited for everything I have coming in the future, everything with the brand, everything with my personal brand, and just everything in general. So just want to thank you guys again, and be sure to, share this if it inspired you, if it felt powerful, if you connected with it, share it with your friends, share the platform. Please go, if you don't mind, go subscribe on YouTube, go write a review on iTunes. All that stuff really means a lot. Thank you guys again, and be sure to stay tuned, because every week we are coming out with a new podcast episode. Stay locked into the page, guys. Thank you. Stay powerful.